Hello, my name is Olivia. I have genuinely liked and enjoyed this class, so thank you so much, Mr. Lockhart. It'll be a bummer to end it this next week, but it's been a pleasure. I did not mean to wear this shirt. I took off my sweatshirt and I was as shocked as you are. And if it affects my grade for the better, I can't control that. I'm kidding. Okay, so I'm going to start my presentation. So I chose case number 5, the inability to report to police work due to childcare problems. So specifically answering question 1, and so yes. Next slide. Grievance arbitration, just a little bit of an overview of what that is. I didn't know what it was when I chose this case, so it was nice to research it a little bit. Grievance arbitration is specific, kind of case by case, or specific to individual parties rather than a group of people, an argument that affects a group of people. A grievance arbitration is kind of a conflict resolution for one specific individual or a small group of individuals against or kind of resolving with their company through an arbitrator. So a union usually files a grievance, and a company and a union come before an arbitrator and kind of discuss their actions, and then the arbitrator makes a decision. So the Railway Labor Act requires the minor disputes, like I said, the individual, the company, affects smaller group of people, minor disputes be resolved through grievance arbitration. And then the reason behind this, Congress and judiciary endorse this because it's increased efficiency. And decreases the resources required. We can't have every single case go to court because it requires a lot of money, a lot of resources, and this is way more efficient just to come to an agreement, one to one, which is very biblical. So, per our next slide, just an overview of the case, specifically case 5 with the child care in the workplace kind of case. So with the police department, due to understaffing, Officer Vincent was ordered really to come in early per her collective bargaining agreement. She agreed to. She was not able to, because she was asked super last minute. She didn't have babysitting for her children, so she couldn't leave them at home. She stayed home, which is understandable. However, she did not alert or let her superior officer know, and because of that, we had to suspend her without pay for 5 days because she broke her contract. I will be on the next slide representing the town. My role is to explain our reasoning for why we made that decision. There were clear expectations laid out for her in her contract. We said that if someone does not come in for an order back, this is the consequence. We followed through with that. We weren't looking at it case by case. It was just say, if this happens, we will do this. And that's what happened. Officer Vincent broke that contract that she was committed to uphold. She signed that contract when she started working, and she broke that contract. So that is the consequence of that. And she didn't report to her superior officer. We have specific exceptions in regard to sickness. And I know that our union the party we're speaking against has brought up the fact that could we not just look at it through the lens of a sick leave? Yes, but even in that, we have an exception of they still need to report to their officer and let them know, if not before, then after the fact. And we'll explain that on the next slide, actually, or on the slide after that. So we were just following our process, which we talk about on the next slide. So in regard to order backs situations, we revert to the officers that are on the schedule for the later that day. Officer Vincent was supposed to work at 3. But because we did not have, we had understaffed, we had to call her in at 11. She wasn't able to, and so we suspended her. After attempting to call in voluntary callbacks, so we did look for people to volunteer to come in, we have to resort to order back. We cannot have less than 8 cars on each shift, and we did, and so we had to resort to order backs, calling her in early. She should have known this. Any officer that is on the shift later that day, they know in the event of understaffing, they will be on call. She should have had someone lined up to babysit, and she didn't. And because of that, we had to suspend her. So our next slide kind of goes into, like I said, broken contract. Officer Vincent broke her collective bargaining agreement, and because of that, we had to suspend her. The National Labor Relations Act talks about firing workers only for cause. So we didn't fire her, but we did suspend her. We did have cause. She broke her contract, and we could go on. She should have reported to her superior officer, but it ends there. She broke her contract. That is the consequence. She will be suspended for a week without pay, but we aren't firing her. After that, we can look into possibly making changes, or hopefully she'll learn from this, and just want to make it clear to other workers that we will uphold this in every case. So it reminds me of Matthew 5:37, which talks about, let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. And it just kind of reiterates the idea of let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. If you sign a contract, we're going to uphold you to what you wrote down and what you said. And because of that, there are consequences to breaking such thing. So on the next slide talks about reporting to a superior officer. She had every ability to report to her superior officer and say, hey, this is the situation. I can't come in till 3, but I want to let you know. We could have had grace for her, but she didn't do that. It says in our report that every employee is supposed to report in the event of being sick. So even if we apply that to this case, she was still asked to report an intended absence to their division head or supervisor as soon as practical, but no later than 15 minutes after commencement of the police officer's duty shift. She had up until 15 minutes after, but even then she did not, and because of that we had to suspend her. So plan of action on the next slide, we want to come to an agreement with an arbitrator. Whatever we discuss, whatever we come to here, we want to fulfill. Our hope is that she serves her suspension, and then we look to amending a contract in the future for our employees to give grace, because that is unfortunate. Childcare emergencies. On the next slide, just an overview again, grievance arbitration. We want to say that it's specific to cases. That was helpful for me to learn. Individual cases, one-to-one parties coming together discussing that. If a union perceives that a grievance may involve common problem, it will not be inclined to select this. So again, it'll go to courts, but one-to-one will be done with grievance arbitration. And so because it was Officer Vincent and the company, it was going to be specific to grievance arbitration. Yes, and then after that is my reference slide. So thank you so much again for this class. I learned a lot. I honestly didn't know a lot before this, so it was cool to just get my feet wet. But yeah, thank you again, Mr. Lockhart. Have a great day, even though it's nighttime.